Hi, I'm Caitlin, and this is Book Chats, and today's Top 5 Wednesday is Top 5 Books About Hard Topics. It was hard for me to evaluate nonfiction versus fiction books, so I kind of cheated, and I have a top 5 of each. Book 5 of fiction is Poisoned Apples, Poems for You, My Pretty, by Christina Hepperman, I believe is her last name. This is a book of poems that all deal with kind of issues of body image, adolescent girls, teenage girls in the United States, the ways we kind of put them down and the things they struggle with, but in poem form. And kind of the conceit of the book is that each poem is like sort of like a fairy tale perspective, which is really interesting. So I definitely recommend that you pick it up. And my nonfiction book number 5 is We Should All Be Feminists. I cannot pronounce the author's name. I should be able to. This is also a TED Talk, so you can watch the TED Talk too. What I like about this book is I feel like I could give it to a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily consider themselves feminists, who say that because they believe that feminism kind of is like a bad thing, and I like the kind of tack that is taken in this. Number 4 for fiction is The Rules of Survival by Nancy Werlin. This book is about an abusive parent. To me, it was meaningful when I read it. It's been probably 10 years since I read it, but I really thought it was an interesting and unique perspective. I also am going to give a shout out to Split by Swati Avashti, which is about a similar topic. Book number 4 for nonfiction is The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down, which is a book about culturally sensitive medicine, and specifically the clash between doctors and a immigrant Hmong family 20 years ago in California. I would particularly recommend the 10th anniversary edition because it has a kind of author's note update at the end that tells you a little bit more about the family that is profiled in particular, but also about the Hmong community in general and how it has grown and changed in the United States since the time that the book was originally written and since the original research was done. This book was really interesting to me. I learned a lot that I didn't know about both kind of cultural sensitivity in medicine and the Hmong culture. I thought it was actually a pretty difficult read. I had a hard time not because it was like such a difficult topic, although it is a difficult topic to kind of write about and to think about, but because it just was like kind of very dense and hard to get through. I am really glad that I read it, and I do reference it in other conversations with people. Book number 3 of fiction is Neil Shusterman's Unwind, which is about both kind of abortion and organ donation and kind of the value of life. It's complicated to explain, but basically it takes what is a pretty difficult topic, puts it in a kind of crazy weird scenario, and then explores it in that crazy weird scenario. And I felt that the author made you think a lot and asked a lot of questions that didn't have easy answers, and I really appreciated that about this book. My nonfiction choice for number 3 is the March series of graphic novels, both book 1 and book 2. I've read book 3. I'm not sure is out yet, but if it is, I haven't read it yet. The kind of hard topic they deal with is the civil rights movement. What I appreciated about these is that they really talked about things that you would think I would know about or had learned in school, but in large case we kind of glossed over or just summarized as like Martin Luther King Jr., yay! And really it's deeper and bigger and broader than that, and I found them to be really interesting. They are John Lewis, the congressman and civil rights leader's memoir in comic book form, which I think is a really effective and interesting way to tell the story. Book number 2 for fiction is Good Kings, Bad Kings. So this is a book that I briefly mentioned in a previous top 5, but I kind of glossed over what it's about, and that's because this is kind of getting set in the territory of books that I struggled to rate on Goodreads because I thought they were well written and important and interesting, but ultimately very disheartening and almost like discouraging. And this is one of them. This book is about sort of the institutionalization of people with disabilities, either mental or physical, and also how much it sucks to be a poor disabled person. And that story is told through several different perspectives. This is an adult novel, but some of the perspectives are young adults and some of the perspectives are adults. and several different perspectives of people who have disabilities or don't have disabilities but work with those who do in and around this institution for those people. And I appreciate a lot of things about this book. One of the things that I appreciate is that there are multiple perspectives of people with disabilities. Those people are distinct and different people. Like, being a person who has a disability is not a monolith, and I think this book conveys that in a lot of ways, although it's all very difficult situations that these people are in. I also think that it portrays, like, in a really upsetting way what I think is actually a reality, which is that we struggle as a nation with how to deal with people with disabilities, and especially people with disabilities who are of lower socioeconomic statuses. And it is a really interesting book. It is a really difficult read emotionally, and I still would highly recommend it. My number 2 book for nonfiction is one you've definitely heard me talk about before. That is Chasing Silhouettes by Emily Wairenga. This is a book that is about how to deal with a loved one who has an eating disorder. I personally really benefited from it, and I think that others could as well. I'm not going to talk about it at length because I've already talked about it on my channel, but if you want to ask me about it, you're welcome to. Book number 1 for fiction is one that I have not even rated on Goodreads because I literally don't know how to rate this book, and that is Point by Brandy Colbert. Those of you who know me, when you see this cover, will know exactly why I picked it up, because it has ballerina on the cover, and it happened to be a debut the year that I read it, and so I was like, debut, ballerina, booyah! And I was not expecting to get what I got. This book is, I think, a very important book, and a very honest and true book, but very, 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 very difficult to read, and I just emotionally was like, what is this main character doing? And I just can't even, like, I understand why she's doing it, but it sucks, and I can't even explain this book to you guys. Basically, a lot of the things that it covers are tied to the main character's sense of self and kind of this low self-esteem she has, or this struggle with identity that she has. And that is also tied to something that happened to her, kind of a trauma in her past that is revealed as part of the book. So I'm not going to talk about that kind of explicitly, but that is really fascinating. But also kind of alongside that, she has this friend who was kidnapped when they were like 10. He's just reemerged, and she hasn't been able to get back in contact with him. She doesn't know how he's doing or what he did, over these past 5 years. She has previously gone through some really bad stuff associated with when that friend got kidnapped. She has a situation during that year when she is dealing with kind of a romantic situation that is not favorable to her. She also is a Black ballerina. She also talks about how hard it is to imagine her future as a Black ballerina because of the kind of racial makeup of a lot of ballerinas. There's just so many little issues and big issues that are dealt with in this book, and describing it that way makes it sound like a very special episode, or maybe multiple very special episodes combined into one, but I promise it does not feel like a very special episode. It does not read like a very special episode. It reads as something that's very raw and just very meaningful. And if any of you have read this, I would love to talk to you about it, because I just feel like it's like, but I can't really describe to you what this experience of reading this book is like. And do not go into it like lighthearted. It is a really difficult read, and I don't know if I can like recommend it to people unless what you want is a hard read, or a read that is about a hard topic. My nonfiction number 1 is a book that will not be a surprise to any of you who have been watching my channel. That is Missoula by Jon Krakauer. I have talked about this book so much on my channel and other people's channels, and I will talk your ear off if you want me to, but why I put it on this list in particular is that I recently was talking to someone about how I would put this book in the hands of someone, not just someone who I think going in would be like, I want to read a book about rape culture, because guys, by the way, this is a book about rape culture, but someone who would maybe be like a rape culture skeptic, or maybe like a great person who's just like, I'm not sure I understand what rape culture is, or who's like, I don't know if I believe that rape culture is a thing because it hasn't been explained to me in a way that I understand, and that like I feel like it might just be like people who are just like overreacting to these situations because the situations I see are not the situations that they see, and I don't feel like rape culture is real. And I would put this book in their hands and I would say, read this book. And I would maybe tell them it was about rape culture, or maybe not. I would maybe just say, this is a book about rape in America and I would like you to read it. And you know, this is an average town, an average, statistically average, and I think that it's very well reported, and enough has been said on my channel about this book, but you know, my mission is to get more people to read it, and more of you should read it, and I want you to know that it is a tool to give people who don't understand the societal issues and pressures and problems around how we talk about rape. So, those are my top 5 fiction and top 5 nonfiction books about hard topics. I would love to hear down below if you've read any of these books and what books about hard topics that you have read and would recommend. Thank you so much for watching this video. Sorry I went up a little late. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.